So thank you. Our next presentation is from Penrith, and it's the Resilient Penrith Action Plan. Belinda Atkins is Penrith's Sustainability and Resilience Lead. I'm really pleased that she could be with us today. And I know from experience that Penrith produces some really good work and some really good people. And I'm really looking forward to hearing about the action plan. And then I'll have some questions for Belinda in the panel session afterwards. So I'll hand over to you, Belinda.
Great, thank you. I'll just share my screen. Okay, so I'm talking about the building resilience through the Resilience Penrith Action Plan today. Just a little bit about Penrith to begin with. So we're 55 kilometres west of the Sydney CBD. We're a known growth area and we're recognised as a future key metro centre in the Western Parkland city, as well as a gateway to Greater Sydney. We have a strong tourism precinct with about 1.3 million visitors a year, a health and education precinct, and of course the Western Sydney Airport and Aerotropolis to come, providing economic investment in industry and business and development. We have an estimated population, this was in 2018, of 209,000, but it's around 216,000 now. Estimated to be around 260,000 by 2031 and well over 300,000 in the next 20 years. Of course, it'll be interesting, as Glenn said, to see what the new data shows on what our population growth is actually expected to be following COVID. We have expected 71,000 homes at the moment, but expected once again to grow. At the moment, that shows 80% is low density still, and we're still identifying 80% as rural and rural residential, which is the character of Penrith. We can see approximately 25,000 plus new dwellings will be required to support our growth. And yet again, this is likely to change the character of Penrith. So you know, how can we grow and provide those new dwellings while keeping and maintaining our character? We can already see there's 12.2% in housing stress and 4.4% in social housing. And it's clearly been shown that we require not only more social housing, but more affordable housing and appropriate housing stock. And also by that meaning appropriate to our climate in order to reduce community stresses. 64% of us are fully employed and 58% of the Penrith workforce are actually local residents. And it's quite clear from the community that more people want to work within their local area. So Penrith will need to attract and enable businesses to grow, to increase those local job opportunities across a range of industries and hopefully achieve that innovative 30-minute city. But again, this might change with how things go with working from home. So growth will bring benefits to Penrith community, however, will also increase the pressures for housing, transport, traffic congestion, infrastructure and services to cater for our growing population, and also increase development in those growth areas. That's going to provide major challenges in how we can design those areas more sustainably in the future, and particularly how can we address urban heat, with extreme heat being recognised as a key challenge for Penrith, with temperatures recording over 50 degrees in some locations within the LGA in 2020. And we currently only have like 30.4% green cover, although we're working on this. So as growth and development adds to the stresses and frequently impact on our capacity to adapt and cope, a Resilient Penrith Action Plan will provide council and the community with an opportunity and that clear way forward to plan for and create sustainable, livable urban spaces to build the resilience of our community and our city. So how did we get there? Why a Resilient Penrith Action Plan? So the impetus, I guess, started for us with Resilient Sydney. They developed the strategy for Resilient Sydney for the 33 councils in Greater Sydney in 2018. We're a part of Resilient Sydney. We're a Resilient Sydney ambassador, and we're assisting them in building that resilience on that regional level through the strategy. As an ambassador, we've also committed to building resilience at that local level. So therefore, the action plan directly aligns to the Resilient Sydney strategy and applies their 5 directions at our local level. We also have our local strategic planning statement, which provides our future direction and recognises the need to plan, design and build sustainable, livable, resilient communities. Our planning priority number 21 specifically talks about developing that Resilient Penrith Action Plan. And since 2015, we've had our Cooling the City strategy, which has looked at cooling outcomes. We've done a fair few projects, especially around tree planting over the last few years. But this really helped us to, look at the community and the way we adapt to heat, and looking at sustainable urban design to address urban heat. The principles of Cooling the City strategy have been incorporated into the Resilient Penrith Action Plan. Okay, so this is the plan. It's from 2021 to 2030. It was just adopted by Council on the 28th of June. The main vision for this plan is that Penrith is a community that is strong, connected and inclusive. And our goal is that we build its capacity to understand and manage those vulnerabilities and risks and prepare, respond and adapt and thrive in the face of those shocks and stresses. So development of the plan. There's a lot going into the development of the plan, which is extremely important. Various stages. It took about 15 months all up to go through these stages for us. We looked at internal scoping and mapping first. So what has Council done? What are we doing? What plans and strategies are out there that have already built resilience that we can use and build upon? What exists in the state and regional basis? What exists nationally? So that whole scoping mapping exercise was done up front. Then we looked into the research. So research around our historic, present and future risks, shocks and stresses and challenges facing our community. We looked at various research studies. So part of that was our benchmarking summer heat across Penrith study, which we did with Western Sydney University. We put 120 sensors out across the LGA to measure temperature over the summer months of 2019-20. Recommendations coming out of that report have then been built directly into the Resilient Penrith Action Plan. We undertook a climate risk assessment through Sustainability Advantage program, and that showed up to be about 48 climate risks identified, with the main impact being around extreme heat, followed by bushfires, air quality, drought, flooding, and then extreme weather in general. And then we looked at doing our vulnerability assessment of the community and vulnerability mapping. So we did this in coordination with some of the other departments across Council. You can see here is at the bottom of the screen where we've built in our shocks, so bushfire, flood and heat. And that included the maps directly from our benchmarking study. And then we looked at the CEPA index and various other demographics socially, as well as some of our business, economic, employment layers. So you can see here, this will really assist us in pinpointing quickly what we need to do and where we need to do it. So who are the vulnerable community members? Where are they located? Where are the shocks bound to be, so that we can make decisions quickly and know what we have to do when and where. So here you can see the heat is the darker orange colour. We've got the bigger circles of people aged over 65, and the darker colour is those with a disability in need of assistance. So we can see where we've got larger circles that are darker in the darker orange areas. Those are the ones that we need to focus on. So this mapping was really essential for us through this process. So next up, we did some community engagement. This was covered over around 2 or 3 months. We engaged with not only our residents, but our businesses, our community organisations and services, our combat agencies, our various committees, youth, as well as staff and people in the cold community. And obviously this was done in height of COVID last year. So we mainly had to move to changing our way of engagement to online processes through surveys, forums, interviews and workshops that were done online. We did do some face-to-face with core community and also with students. But we can see here, and it's good to see that the research we'd done up front aligned with the community's perceptions of what the shocks and stresses were within their community themselves. So the main shocks again was heat, flooding, bushfire, the financial crisis, and then the pandemic. So good to note that whilst we were in the pandemic and it was the forefront of people's minds, it actually was one of the lowest on the scale with heat, flooding, bushfire coming well before it in terms of those shocks, that impact on the community. Our stresses, on the other hand, did show a COVID influence and that COVID lens, with people being mainly uncertain about the future. The financial stress of that, so people losing their jobs and not being able to afford their bills or their mortgage, So that was a major stress. And again, mental health concerns, not being able to socialise, being locked in their homes, not being able to exercise much if they didn't have green space or that around their homes. So, and then heat, of course, did come up in terms of health impacts of heat and how they suffer through with those health impacts in the summer months. The main information that came out of this, the community needs, we looked at community preparedness, and this showed that the community actually weren't prepared much at all for the major shocks and natural hazards. So a score of 2.3 out of 5 for this, which was quite low. Not many people had plans in place or knew what to do in terms of an emergency. And in terms of stresses and shocks, most people turn to their family and friends, so heavily reliant on family and friends. So there wasn't that community network or neighbourhood network in place with a score of 3 out of 10 of how people know their neighbours. Plans also didn't involve professional help or services, and it showed that less than 15% knew how to access services, and only 32% could access mental health services easily. Other highlights that came out of this was the need for increased safe open spaces, affordable housing, and of course more job and learning opportunities closer to home. So those were turned into community priorities. As you can see, most of that was creating more events to bring people together to really connect the community, creating those spaces that young people feel safe in, building up those green spaces that's accessible to everybody, looking at bringing the professional services together to collaborate, providing easy information access, knowing where to find things, helping people combat heat in their homes, and again providing more information around emergencies, what to do to prevent and prepare for those emergencies. So we took those community priorities and we translated those straight into our action plan. The format of the action plan, as you can see, is related to the 5 directions from the Resilient Sydney strategy. So what we've got listed under those directions is action areas. So the plan is formatted with each direction having alignment to sustainable development goals. We'll then align to the regional Resilient Sydney outcome and then a localised Penrith outcome. And under that sits these action areas. And then under those are obviously actions for each. So we've covered off on pretty much everything we need to build a resilient Penrith under these directions. So direction 1 is looking at accessible services and space. Direction 2 is live with our climate. So this is where we've pulled in the cooling the city principles and practices, so around that tree planting, but also looking at our DCP, LEP reviews and what we can do about the materials we actually build a city to make better sustainable designs, water and natural systems management and ecological health, and then looking at environmental performance and enhancing that environmental performance of council and the community through resource energy efficiency and renewable energy uptake. And direction 3 is all about the community. So making sure they can access the community services they need and bringing that community together to build that connection that they can then rely on as they need to. And then get ready. So that's all about being prepared and raising awareness. What do we need to do and how can we understand who's vulnerable and what those risks are to better prepare. And then direction 5 is around our leadership and collaboration space. So that's the format of the actual Resilient Penrith Action Plan, and hopefully all of that will build resilience within our Penrith area. So key messages I just want to leave you with. The journey is as important as the destination, and can't really say this enough. So I said it took us 15 months to get there, and we've got the plan in the end. But it's about giving sufficient time and following the right steps to get the information you need to develop a good, accurate plan. It's also about bringing everyone along with you. So, everyone is now well versed in what we're trying to do. They've played a role throughout the journey, and therefore they're more accepting and they've taken ownership in the implementation phase. So very important. Informed by evidence-based research. So throughout this whole thing, we've made sure we've had a good evidence base on all the actions that we've implemented in the plan. So there's no point developing a plan and the actions unless we know that these actions are actually going to address the risk, shocks and stresses and challenges that Penrith faces and that they will actually build resilience. And, you know, at the end of the day, we need to justify why these actions are in there, and we need a good evidence base to do that. Engage widely and early. So engaging with as many people as possible and the right people at early stages as well as throughout the entire development. Knowing, you know, who those people are in the community, so the champions, but as well as who those services are that you might need to partner with, but also in terms of our staff. So, you know, we started early off with a panel of staff across various departments of councils to combine our skills and knowledge sets to make sure nothing was missed and that we were covering off on everything, and that we included the essential departments throughout the whole process. Translating our actions and from the engagement and research into that action plan. So ensuring that in the end, the action plan does actually reflect what the research and the community has shown, and that we're achieving resilience. So again, very important. And collaboration. I don't think we really need to talk much on this, except that we all know it's key. It hasn't been done that well to date, but it is essential in building resilience. We can't do it alone. This requires partnerships. It requires working together to prepare, adapt, and respond. So collaboration is the key in this situation. And the last one is integrators, so not standing alone. So we did the staff workshop. One of the staff came up with this quote, and obviously I thought, yes, you know, we need to look at this. We can't have a single plan which is going to sit on the shelf. We do need to work together, and we want resilience to be built in, and that's what we're aiming for with this plan. The next stage is to build it into the integrated planning and reporting framework, so including it within the community plan, the delivery plan, the operational plan, the business plans of each department, the KPIs, asset management system, reporting system, and then the resource strategy and long-term financial plans, just to ensure it's applied, implemented, monitored, and reported on, and, you know, can be successful, to give it every chance of being successful in building council and community resilience, and to become that business as usual. Thank you.
Thank you. That's fantastic. Great work, Belinda, and thank you for sharing it. And aren't we lucky that council approved it just a very short time ago?
Exactly.
So perfect timing, really. But yeah, I noted that quote at the end as well. That you know, this move that we all need to make, I suppose, towards working holistically towards resilience, and you know, from the very start of council's responsibility through to the very end of a community functioning well, we're all part of that process. So thank you very much. Great work. And you'll be joining us on the panel now. So we'll keep you on and